There's a path, an expat path, that is presented in travel channels, and it's a true path. It does exist. And it's a path that leads from where you're at now in your home country, going through a process where you relocate or you spend a decent amount of time in the Philippines. You meet a wonderful woman, fall in love. You either stay in the Philippines and remain married here, or you get her that visa to your country and you start a new life there in your home country. And then life is good. You got yourself a woman that loves you and you're crazy about her and everything just works out. And as I said, that path does exist. But it does require that you make good decisions along the way, because there are all these pitfalls and red flags in the process. And some guys get so fixated on the goal. Like, I just want to get to the part where we're married, she's in my house, and it's all groovy. And they rush through, and next thing you know, it's a catastrophe. So this path to a happy, simple life is not the only path. Now, depending on your background, you may or may not be familiar with the word purgatory. I won't go into a whole deep dive on it. You can do that on ChatGPT or whatever. But for our purposes here, purgatory is when you are neither in heaven or hell. You are in this foggy, tortuous, hellish, unhappy place in life, and nothing seems to get any better. And unfortunately, I've talked to so many guys since 2012 who have found themselves now in expat purgatory. They can't move forward. Life is just a living hell. They're far worse off than they were before they started. And the two arenas where this purgatory is bifurcated, it's like you got two rooms to go in. And unfortunately, some guys join these two rooms. But the two rooms in expat purgatory are the romantic realm and the financial realm. Now, some guys, they are in a marriage that is just a living hell day after day. And you might ask yourself, well, why do these guys stay in the situation? How did they get into this situation? And that's what we're going to take a look at here. Now, the path to expat purgatory, it starts out with good intention, but very little preparation. A guy sees a couple of videos about, oh, hey, it's so great to date in the Philippines, or look at all the tropical trees and beaches. Life is good. I want some of that. Okay, there's no problem there. But next thing you know, he's booking a ticket, either moving to the Philippines, or says to himself, I'm going to spend 3 weeks in the Philippines and find me a good Filipina woman so that we can do an LDR, a long distance relationship online, and I'll get to know her online, and I'll eventually just marry her and bring her over, and it's all going to be groovy. But that is exactly how they end up in a mess. Because what typically happens is the guy who comes in for 3 weeks, and even if he comes in for 3 weeks every 3 months to see the same woman, a few guys have been able to make that work and been able to vet the woman out, or just by blind luck, they just happened to hook up with a good woman and it worked out. But the majority of guys, they meet a Filipina on their vacation. It all goes fantastic because they're in this honeymoon phase and he's on vacation mode. Yeah, let's go stay at a nice hotel. Let's get some jet skis. Let's take your whole family out to dinner. It's all great. And then he flies back home and now he's messaging with her. And what's really going on here is he had 3 wonderful weeks with a Filipina who habitually meets expats while they're on vacation so that she can go to all these nice places. So while he's back home working, and eventually, whether he wants to admit it or not, he figures, well, he's in love, this is his girlfriend, this is his fiancée, So, of course, he's going to send her money for this, that, and the other thing. Meanwhile, what he doesn't understand is he was simply the guy that she traveled around with or hung out with for 3 weeks in March. And by the time April rolled around, or May, she's out doing the same thing with another expat. Because this is what she does. She goes through the dating sites. Hey, when are you going to be in the Philippines? Oh, I'll meet you at the airport, or we'll go out. I'll spend my time with you. And then that guy goes home. I was once with a Filipina who was not my girlfriend. She was a friends with benefits and really a very good friend. And we were just hanging around talking, and she got a phone call. It was one of 3 guys. After she finished the phone call, it was very short. The guy was just calling to say, hey, I sent you some money. Here's the claim number. I'll message it to you, yada, yada. But he was only one of 3 guys that she told me she had met them on their vacation. She spent some time with them. They, again, took this path where it's like, oh, we're doing an LDR relationship. I love you too. So she's got 3 guys sending her money. And she rode to my apartment that night on the motorcycle that one of those guys paid for. I had another Filipina girlfriend who had a niece that was 18, just got out of high school, didn't want to go to school, didn't want to do anything. So the family sent this niece to my girlfriend, who was fairly wealthy and well-to-do, saying, well, maybe you can get her on track. Maybe you can point her in the right direction. But months later, actually it was like 11 months later, a year later, she ended up kicking her out of her house. Why? Because she caught her niece doing the exact same thing, leading on expats, meeting with them, pumping them for money, not serious about any of them. So she kicked her out. And this is the path to expat purgatory. It's only the first step, because the next step is one of the guys takes what I call the boots on the ground advantage. He decides to come here, move here, long enough to maybe secure a visa for them to get married in his country, or he decides to marry her in the Philippines and build a life, because he's still thinking he's on this path to marital bliss. But for the Filipina, if she decides to do an assessment of his financial status and figures, well, okay, I give up the other 2 guys that are sending me maybe $100, $200 a month, but I commit to this guy who's got some pretty deep pockets. If I marry him, I can come out way ahead. And so that's what she does. The entire time, fawning all over a guy that she's maybe spent 2 months with in the last 3 years in person. The rest of it was video calls between her dates with other guys. And she smiles in his face and says she loves him. And yes, I'll marry you. And next thing you know, he is now in stage 2 of the path to purgatory. Now he's committed legally. Now they're married. Now she has leverage. Now she's telling him, well, we need to get a house. So he buys her a house or has one built. Well, my parents, they're getting old and, we got to move them in. And see, buying a house is not a bad idea if you're with a good woman. But buy the house and consider moving in the parents if you're already married and the marriage has been going good for a few years. But these guys are buying houses 2 months after the wedding. They still don't even know this woman. They essentially married a stranger based on the information they got through messages and video calls from 7,000 miles away. But they really don't know this woman because they didn't spend a year in person with her to really flesh out any red flags about her. And then comes the final 3rd stage of this path to expat purgatory, when she announces, oh, I'm pregnant with our baby. Well, it might be his baby. And even if it is his baby, the amount of financial leverage she has gained to where now, sadly, and you find these stories all the time, all over the Facebook expat groups or in comments on YouTube channels about being an expat. And you hear these guys tell you with tortured resignation, well, this happened to me and I brought her to the United States. I brought her to Canada, Europe, whatever. I only knew her really online and for the few visits I did, but we had to get married within 90 days. And now she's taken my assets. She's cheating on me. She left me. There was one guy contacted me, and not only did the Filipina marry him and go to his country with the visa and everything, but after she had the first kid, by that time, she was already having an affair with some other local guy in the United States. She actually abandoned her own child and then sued for assets in the divorce court to go be with a younger guy. And I wish I could say this is only a 1 in a million occurrence, but it happens way too often. And it's largely because guys don't take their time. They're too much in a rush. They're chasing after a woman out of extreme thirst and desperation. They somehow think, well, here's a cute younger Filipina and she says she loves me. I'll never find that ever again. Well, if they would have taken a year to just live in the Philippines, they would realize they could find a woman pretty much every other hour that fits that description, that would want to date him, get to know him, but they act as if they found the last Coca-Cola in the desert, and then they start locking it all down with marriage and a baby and a house. So what is the remedy? How do you avoid ending up in that kind of a living hell where someone just recently commented, said, well, this is what happened to me, but I don't want to leave her because of my kids. I don't want them being raised just by her and ending up like her. So for the sake of the kids, I'm sticking it out. But meanwhile, she's wasting my money and cheating on me. That's the kind of life that a guy is facing when he ends up in expat purgatory. So the way to keep this from happening is, again, what I've said for years. Take your time and exercise some self-control. Just because you've been dating a Filipina for 2 months and it's been really awesome, that's not the time to start talking about marriage plans. Don't be even thinking about getting engaged until you've known this woman a year in person. Now, I know what many will say is, I can't just pick up and leave and move to the Philippines and see a woman every day for a year to get to know her. I've still got to work. So I'm going to go on the dating sites and I'm going to get to know her online and I'm going to go there. And if it goes good, by the way, if it goes good, it's definitely going to go good. Again, you're on vacation mode. It's all going to be good. You're going to have fun and laughs and all that. And then they say, well, if it goes good, then, and you can see they're already on this path to making bigger commitments to a woman that they only are getting to know online. And I don't care how you slice it. You know a woman by spending time with her in person. Because even if you're video chatting with her 3 hours a day, you have no clue what she's doing the other 21 hours of the day. And those 3 hours, she can put on a smiley face for you those 3 hours. And then she can log off, especially with the time difference. And then she takes a jeepney over to her boyfriend's house and spends the night there. If all you can do is come to the Philippines for 3 weeks every 6 months, come with the intention of having a great vacation, seeing some really awesome places, maybe have some recreational dating, no commitments, and then call it a day. Do not make finding a wife in 3 weeks to be your goal. Because the second you do that, the odds are you will have no idea who this woman is when you only see her 3 weeks every 6 months. And if you want to try and beat those odds, well, just don't be surprised if the odds go against you.